It's a great headline out of the CBC today. I love how they're now trying to scramble and catch up. That's the thing with these political parties, and they're completely on board with allowing a lot of this stuff, depending on who's in power. But the media propagandists are realizing now this. How do you skirt that line now when you're talking about border security? Because both the Canadian and the American governments, and I mean, people like myself have been talking about this stuff, and raising the flags and sounding the alarms. Like, yeah, this shit is completely unconstitutional, immoral, illegitimate. Yeah, none of it could even be. Even the pretense of having any sense of legitimacy is completely unfounded and built and trenched upon mysticism and subjective opinions of central planners and control freaks. But now that Trump's in charge, now all of a sudden they're more concerned about this. But I was raising the flags when the Canadian judges, that's another thing too. We look to these fucking, once again, more just human beings that get to determine, right? Think about the world we live in, where some fucking human being gets to determine what your right means, right? You might know what it means, but some person can completely arbitrarily decide what that means based on their understanding and interpretation of a law, right? Or the legitimacy of a law. But this is in regards to cell phone searches and laptop searches that are happening, apparently at a fairly rampant pace these days at the Canadian-U.S. borders, right? All based on terrorism, which, like I say, governments are the biggest terrorists on the planet, but I digress on that one. But it's always under this pretense of security and defense of the people, when in reality it's like, I mean, like myself, 46 years of age, if I go to cross the border, it's like, and they, go through and treat me like garbage, a second-class citizen, go through my phone and my laptop and all this shit, and hinder my ability to travel freely, even though I'm not a criminal, I have no criminal intent or anything. But think about it. Who treated me any worse, right? People that I'm supposed to be scared of, terrorists, right? Which, like I said, such a open-ended term that it basically means nothing. But the pretense of some, I don't know, as they paint them now, right-wing or Muslim, because apparently nowadays, if you listen to the established media, the only people that can be terrorists are right-wingers or Muslims, Islamists, right? So I'm supposed to be scared of these people, although I can tell you in my life, 46 years of I've been alive, none of those people have actually caused me any genuine harm to myself, stolen from me, used force or forced subjugation or mysticism or have any pretense of authority over me. Governments do, right? These fuckers or these order followers that do whatever their political masters tell them. These are the people that really have the most negative ramification and consequence towards your life. Those are the people that have the most negative effect on your free movement and your ability to be a free human being. Once again. Anyways, headline, how would you know what your rights are? Secret policies govern cell phone searches at Canadian border. So when we were trying to tell you people, yeah, this shit's all, but no one cared, like I say, because someone that aligned with them politically was in power and in control of U.S. policy, so they didn't really give a fuck. Like I said, and I see in the CBC, nobody cared. Even when they had to be or were forced to report on it, they played it down as if, it's no big deal. Now all of a sudden it means something, because those are the people, like I said, if you want to know how people's opinions usually align, it's usually if it affects them personally or not, right? Then you'll see the disparity, the divide in what people's opinions are, their subjective opinions regarding government and government policies, right? But now they're very concerned. Fucking idiots. And I'm still not ready to show any solidarity with these idiots. I don't care. Hey, let them, hey, what was it, 8 years under Obama? Let's at least give them a couple of years of having to deal with this kind of bullshit before we even start to align with saying, hey, are you almost ready now? Are you almost there? Because they're not going to get there. They're never going to get there. They have to suffer the indignities, right? They have to feel that sense of oppression, that heavy hand, the authoritarianism beaten down upon their back. Then they might start coming around. But let's not give them even any leeway. Don't put your hand out yet. They're not there yet. When you travel to the U.S., customs agents can search your smartphone, laptop, and other electronic devices at will. A long-time policy that has attracted renewed scrutiny in light of President Donald Trump's controversial immigration ban. So like I say, now all of a sudden they care. Before they didn't, right? Ah, shit. What you may not realize is Canadian customs agents can do the same. Why wouldn't they not realize that, CBC? While you're the news outlet, the Canada's national broadcaster, what? You weren't keeping Canadians well informed and up to date on this kind of thing? Does that not prove your own fail? Of course it does. But unlike the U.S., the Canadian government has not made public its policies on how those searches are conducted, or even revealed if formal policies exist at all. Well, isn't that your job? Isn't that the whole point of journalists? Right? To be the adversaries, to tell the people what the government refuses to do. Isn't that kind of the whole point in having the fourth or fifth estate, right? So once again, they're pointing to their own failures, but they're too fucking stupid, so self-indulged, so narcissistic, they don't even realize that they're pointing to their own failures. Legal experts say that lack of transparency makes it difficult for travelers to know their rights when a Canadian border agent asks to conduct a digital search. First of all, there is no such thing as rights, as we know. I mean, there's some shit written on paper, right, that should be easily interpreted. I mean, think about it. If you were telling your kids, don't steal, that should be easily understood. Take something without permission, right? So, and it should be universal. There shouldn't be any exceptions to the rule. I mean, other than the very, very, so don't steal or don't cause injury or accident or insult to other people that can have a direct monetary or personal consequence to their beings or something, right? Like, liable and all. But once again, all these lines have been completely skirted. Like I say, lawyers, politicians, and judges have now made it because, like I say, they can tweak and find different ways and different methods to tweak a narrative. So in one particular case, they might find that the exact same meaning of a sentence has this. That's the end result of our interpretation of it. And then the very next case might give a completely opposite or opposing interpretation of it. So, like I said, nobody fucking understands. Everything is completely now open to interpretation so that nobody actually understands what's right and wrong anymore. This is the fucking problem. Could you imagine trying to raise a family where there's no actual genuine truth or false statements, there's no objective reality, and there's no actual right or wrong? Everything's completely subjective up to whatever your opinions or your ideology, right? This is why we find ourselves in the situation we are today. This is the problem. Propagandists and political opportunists have created the atmosphere where the language is no longer easily understood because they've completely distorted it. So yeah, hey, you fuckers have painted yourself into the corner and now you're finding yourself in the corner. Deal with it, dumbasses. Maybe you shouldn't have done that shit in the first place to be opportunist fucksticks, right? The border is a place that makes people nervous. You are not inclined to assert your rights, if you even know what they are, which many people don't, says Rob Curry, a law professor at Dalhousie University and director of the Law and Technology Institute at the Schulich School of Law. And in this case, how would you know what your rights are? Take it from someone that has had to do that, sometimes 6 times, 8 times in a week crossing the border, right? Back and forth from Canada to U.S., U.S. to Canada. As a truck driver, I know this shit very well, and I know just how fucking crazy things can be. It should never be that way. What it comes down to is you have to become the most conformist, subject, loyal, obedient, serf to the ruling class as you can ever be when you reach the border. That's really what it comes down to, and most people understand this. But it's not it has nothing to do with, there's no real pretense of freedom. It's just you got to become a good little serf or slave. That's it, and we all know this. If you've crossed the border anyways. What is known is that the Canadian or the Canada Border Service Agency, CBSA, doesn't need a warrant to search your phone or laptop which both fall under the Customs Act's broader definition of goods. So once again, these aren't goods. I mean, if you have a laptop, think about the kind of stuff: pictures, videos, personal history, medical information. So or even just a letter. I mean, throughout all of history of Canada, even the U.S., even our postal services, it was understood instinctively, and it was written and almost burned into the psyche of the Canadian people or the American people was, yeah, you can't open up a federal envelope like someone's letter. Privacy was respected, and the only way you could do it, you'd have to go through multiple levels of government, like, and get a warrant before you could even do that. But like I say, all of our rights that are supposed to be natural and common rights have been completely circumvented and relegated basically to the dustbins of history because of lawyers and politicians and opportunists that will find some way to use a legal precedent in a particular case, or be really good liars so that you can circumvent all these things that have took hundreds of years to get to the point where, yes, people should respect the privacy of an individual. I mean, come on, fuck. Why are you fucking people just now starting to catch up now? And who's this that's writing this article? Let's get to it. Matthew Braga, senior technology reporter. It looks like a young man, a millennial. Maybe this fucking young man will start to realize. Maybe he should start to do a little research and learning regarding history. And maybe you'll understand why, people fought about freedom of speech and privacy and all this stuff why so many people, countless millions, died a long time ago, right? Not just arguing on social media, but people that actually had to suffer the indignities of losing limbs and their lives, and their families never seeing them. These people don't even fucking truly grasp or understand how much pain, devastation, and anguish happened just to even bring about the pretense of privacy and freedoms. It's such disrespect to those people that fought to bring these things to fruition. But how that search is conducted, whether agents can compel you to turn over your password, say, or make a copy of the data on your device remains unclear. So how could you get to this point? And why would CBC and the establishment media, Globe and Mail, why wouldn't anyone hold these politicians to account and make them force their hands? Obviously, we've gotten to the point where they did, right? Because they had people that they weren't really concerned about prior. Now that someone like Trump's come to power, now they're concerned. Now they're scrambling to try to catch up. Well, like I said, maybe you fuckers should have been thinking about this kind of stuff long ago. Adversarial journalism. Talk to Glenn Greenwald, right? He fucking will tell you that that's the whole point. And I mean, thank goodness for people like him, that even though he does align mostly with people on the political left, he still will call every one of those fuckers out all the time. And I see that he does it. Thank God for people like him. I have mad respect for people like Glenn Greenwald. Even though I don't agree with his politics, I agree with his constant promotion of free speech and holding governments to account, right? And being the adversary that takes that as your own personal task. As a journalist, that is your task. The U.S. government, on the other hand, published its policy on electronic devices searches in 2009. I don't know if it's simply not available, not advertised, or literally does not exist, says lawyer Michael Vaughan, policy director of the British Columbia Civil Liberties Association. And I don't know that it would be to their benefit to put any of that in writing. So once again, they're just skirting around the fact that, look, in Canada, laws are all completely subjective depending on who you are. And I've learned this personally, firsthand, in my life, multiple times, that if you're in favor of the government or you can pay them off, laws might work to your advantage, or the legal system may work to your advantage. But anyone outside that narrow band, that narrow scope, it's all completely subjective and determined on your willingness to go along, get along, and obey the edicts of your supposed authority, right? If you just are willing to step outside that bounds even a little bit, you find out that you actually live in a pure dictatorship where they'll come down with a heavy hand, the authoritarianism, but they do it in a much quieter manner than anyone in like the U.S. or these other countries. They're much sneakier. They're much more devious. The people in Canada, the central planners and control freaks, they're much more devious and deceptive in the way that they use their power. It's a soft totalitarianism. It's a more soft authoritarianism that, presents a much nicer aesthetic look to it. But trust me, it's every bit as brutal. And look at the people that have had to suffer as the consequence of trying to stand up against these fucks, and you'll understand that reality. Listen to their stories. Listen to their personal circumstances. Listen to the kind of shit they've had to deal with. And you'll find out that actually maybe death might have been the lesser of those evils, right? Anyways, I'm not going to read the entirety of this entire article. I'll post a link to it in the description of this video. Comment and like and share my stuff, please. I hope that you'll do that so that I can expand my reach and my platform to have a counter narrative against these central planners, fuck. Because I mean, if I'm always going to have no reach, right? They're going to always have the power. The only way you can counteract that power is people like myself giving my voice a wider or broader audience. Skinny Libertarian, and I love liberty.